Okay, so we were going to move on to supporter Q&A at this point, but this just in, breaking news, John.
Yeah, this just popped up on my radar. Actually, Time Extension did a story on it, and somebody's porting Castlevania Rondo of Blood to the Mega Drive. Well, porting, it seems like they're rewriting it for the system, and they posted a video just yesterday as a recording of like the first stage being played. And I think that's freaking cool to see it. Like this kind of just reminded me that there's a lot of developers out there that are just bringing crazy stuff to the Mega Drive. I don't know if you've seen, like, there's R-Type, RoboCop, there's Final Fight MD, there's a version of Symphony of the Night in the works for it, Super Castlevania 4.
Super Castlevania 4.
And now we've already had like Rockman or Mega Man X partially done as well, which I think it sounds better and plays really better than the Super NES game even.
Wow.
It's so like the community around Mega Drive is just continuing to impress me. There's so much happening in this space. New releases, new games being both original games, ports. Like the Mega Drive is alive and well, shall we say. And this is just one more to add to the stack. And I really hope that they can actually see it all the way through.
So
that'd be awesome.
I just did some Wikipedia-ing, and Rondo of Blood was originally for the PC Engine Super CD-ROM.
Oh, sorry, I love this game so much that I just assume everybody knows what it is. But you're right. This is I think the best traditional Castlevania game. It was released for the PC Engine in Japan, and it was kind of a sought after import for years. I have a copy here, of course, but it later showed up in the West through multiple channels. There was the PSP, a remake of this game that also included an emulated version of the PC Engine game. And then I think it showed up in one of the other Castlevania collections a bit later. So it is out there for sure, and I highly recommend it. And there was also a pseudo remake on Super Famicom and Super NES back in the day that was not well regarded.
Okay.
Despite the excellent visuals, it was a very different game with much worse level design. It wasn't nearly as good as the original. So, but yeah.
Do we have any sort of details on how this has happened? Why it's happening?
Well, one of the things is this thing called SGDK, which is I guess the Genesis development kit. Even Yuzo Koshiro and his crew is using this to create Earthian, which he's been posting more teases of the music, by the way, and that's going to be mind-blowingly good when it hits. So Ancient's, I guess, doing that. So SGDK seems to be the key, where it's a development kit for the Mega Drive that seems to allow people to just write using like C code and the like, to work directly on this system. And it seems to be fast enough where I guess it's just quite usable in making these awesome games, because, back in the day, everybody was writing directly in, I guess, assembler, right? Like you weren't doing, I'm sure there was some, like, I actually need to refresh my memory on how the older games were designed, but I think a lot of the best ones were all done in assembly code. So which, if you can write X68000 assembler, you can do some amazing stuff. But the other thing about modern Mega Drive games that makes it so interesting is that the ROM size is no longer an issue.
Right.
Because back in the day, it was expensive to get ROM chips. So a lot of games were limited by the size of the ROM chip, the mask ROM chip in the game. So like the system could have done better on a lot of ports, but then the budgets would be like, no, you can only have like a 4 megabit ROM or something.
Sounds a bit like the Switch cartridge situation.
It's 100% that, but it has like an insanely huge impact. Like, let's say you did a port of an arcade game, but you only had like 4 megabits. Even if the system could technically run it with the big complicated sprites, there's no room to store it on that tiny little cartridge. So they would have to cut it way back. And that's not the fault of like the processor or the graphics chip or anything. It's just they didn't have enough space. And now that limitation's removed, we're really seeing that people can do some crazy stuff on this system. That looks like way beyond what Mega Drive games could have looked like back at the time. So I think that's awesome.
Sounds cool, but couldn't they have used the Mega CD?
Oh, back in the day?
Yeah, for that extra storage.
And some did, but I think the problem is like the Mega CD just wasn't popular enough.
Yes.
And there are absolutely examples of Mega CD games that push visuals and do interesting things that you didn't see on the normal console. But again, I don't think there was that much money being poured into most Mega CD games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's more the issue.
I just had a sudden weird memory, which is that I was running a Sega magazine when the Mega CD came out, and I actually went to the shop and bought one on launch day for £250. Which, yeah, nuts, right? Why did I do that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, is I think the Mega CD is quite good in the end. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I've amassed a good collection for it. Part of the problem, though, is I think it was poorly marketed and sold in the West, because Sega of America especially focused so heavily on FMV. But in reality, all the best games are not FMV games. And a lot of them were stuck only in Japan. And in Japan, those types of games were more designed to resemble what was being done on like the PC Engine CD-ROM, where they're just using the CD for like music, larger, more complex graphics and the like, but they're still like 16-bit style. Whereas in the West, there was this big focus on just making FMV, and that it was a dead end. And FMV looked awful on the system anyway.
It certainly did. Yeah.
So